name is Rachel Steinbacher. I am a left-handed clinician, and I actually have a scar on my left hand right there. That way you'll be able to tell it's me throughout the video instead of having me zoom in and out. But today I'm going to be demonstrating on how you use a anterior curette. Now, an anterior curette is actually used for subgingival calculus removal, and it removes moderate to heavy calculus. And I'm going to be using that on Sextant 2 today, facial and lingual surfaces. Now that I've established the correct working end, I'm going to retract the teeth. Okay. Now that I've established the correct working end, I'm going to be doing the facial surfaces away from me of Sextant 2. So I'm going to start off by retracting the lips, and then I'm going to have that patient move away from me just a little. That way I can see the tooth directly from that overhead light. So then I'm going to come in with my fulcrum finger 1 to 2 teeth away, and I'm going to keep that toe third of the instrument adapted the entire time. And I'm going to insert at a 0 to 40 degree angle just behind the midline, and then I'm going to pivot up on my fulcrum finger and then use a working stroke and my wrist activation to go all the way to the proximal surfaces just up to that contact area. So then I'm going to repeat that on the next tooth. Going to insert behind the midline, pivot up, and then use that working stroke all the way up to the contact area. You want to make sure you're keeping that wrist activation. And this is a working stroke, so my fingers are a little blunted. That way you can get that moderate to heavy calculus removal. And this instrument does go sub. So then I'm going to have the patient move towards me just a little so I can see. And I'm going to go down 0 to 40 degrees, pivot up, go sub, that working stroke, roll, 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 right up to that contact area. Last tooth. Down, pivot, roll, 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 proximal surface contact area. So now I'm going to be doing the surfaces away from me. So to do that, you need to find the correct working end again. Once you've established that, you're going to retract the lips. I'm going to have them move towards me again so I can see the tooth from that overhead light. And now I'm going to put my fulcrum finger down, insert right behind the midline, 0 to 40 degrees, pivot, and roll, 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 right into that contact area. Insert, pivot, wrist activation, roll, 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 proximal surfaces to the contact area. I'm going to have them straighten their face, or head, excuse me. Insert, down, pivot, roll, 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 roll. Roll, roll, roll. I'm going to have them move away from me now so I can see the tooth. Down, insert, pivot, up, roll, roll, roll. You're keeping that terminal shank parallel to the long axis of the tooth. When you pivot up to your fulcrum. Roll, 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 contact area. Okay, and that concludes the facial surfaces of Sextant 2, the anterior teeth. So now that I've completed the facial surfaces of Sextant 2, I'm going to move on to the lingual surfaces of Sextant 2. So to start off, you're going to find the correct working end. I've established that, so now I'm going to use my mirror for indirect vision. I'm going to angle 0 to 40 degrees, right behind that midline, pivot up, and then use that working stroke right into the contact area. And then I'm going to repeat this process. Down, pivot, and then use that working stroke right into the contact area. Going towards the proximal surfaces. Up, pivot. You're going to keep that toe third adapted the entire time. right into the contact area. Now that I've finished surfaces away from me, I'm going to be doing surfaces towards. I'm going to adapt that toe 1/3, angle it down 0 to 40 degrees, pivot up, and then use that working stroke to go towards the proximal surfaces up to that contact area. Going to be repeating this process for the rest of the anterior teeth on the lingual surfaces. Down, insert, pivot, roll, 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 roll. Down, roll, roll, roll. Pivot, roll, 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 roll. Down. Now that I've finished surfaces away from me, I'm going to be doing surfaces towards. I'm going to adapt that toe 1/3, angle it down 0 to 40 degrees, pivot up, and then use that working stroke to go towards the proximal surfaces up to that contact area. Going to be repeating this process for the rest of the anterior teeth on the lingual surfaces. Down, insert, pivot, roll, 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 roll. Down, roll, roll, roll. Pivot, roll, 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 roll. Down. And that concludes the anterior curette.